Yeah, everything that we heard, we would take it to heart. We do have a lot to cover right now. I want to thank one person in particular, Casey Andrews. He gave us a lot of good information, I never heard, but I thought he made some really good points. I'm going to turn it over to the township attorney right now for some answers for some of the things, and each committee member, if they have something they want to say or answer, we'll do that too. But we'll start with the township attorney.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Look, there was a lot of comments tonight, and I would just say that personally, a lot of well-taken and thoughtful comments and constructive. What happens, just in my opinion, is sometimes local government comes up with ideas. Under redevelopment, you can try to encourage certain development, and I want to give an example. At the nursing home site, this governing body worked hard to find a suitable use and came up with, at that point in time, a senior housing use as opposed to multifamily and other type of uses, which again, that's redevelopment, that's what it does. I think in this case, what we've seen is this property's had a history of different uses, and this particular use clearly has initiated a reaction from the public. So when I answer this, I want to first say, I asked each one of the members of the governing body, starting with the mayor, if at the end of this meeting, the governing body we could speak in executive session to discuss some legal issues and taking into account all of the discussion that has gone on to discuss possible next steps, one way or the other. I think that's important to note, and everyone said to me that they wanted to do that. Now you might say, well, why would that be an executive session? Yeah. Well, let's just say the strategy was one way or the other that could affect a development or a development application. That discussion should first be an executive session as to what might happen to avoid any kind of timing issues, as was brought up by the public with a particular developer. So I think it's not to keep the public here away from it, it's that if there's going to be a discussion about this and potential legal issues, we wouldn't want the property owner or developer or landowner to hear that discussion. But with that being said, there's a few things I did want to try to confirm. One is there is no non-disclosure agreement. There is no pilot agreement, that's payment in lieu of taxes. We did have a discussion in executive session about a pilot, and I did do some preliminary computations as to what would be the financial implications. It came to about $4 to $5 million a year for the township, and so that is the type of discussion that was had. It's not an exemption, but that's what the financial implications are, and when your budget is $12 million, it's important to note that. So in addition, with respect to some of the concerns about water, which I think have been well taken, and I've received calls from the Township Committee to take a closer look at it. I also asked if, well, first, of course, there's the ordinance, but second of all, that the administration and the mayor had asked me to reach out to a hydrogeologist to try to get a proposal for a hydrogeologist to look at this and address concerns that have been raised. So I'm working on that to get back to the governing body. At the same time, the ordinance, again, at this point in time, which is before the governing body, tried to specifically address a lot of the concerns that were raised instead of entrusting it to just the land use board, which I think was the original intention, that if an application were to come forward, the land use board would make certain determinations. So the ordinance with respect to water requires a closed loop water cooling system, and it says shall be comprised of a cooling system. No groundwater withdrawal from on-site wells. And it goes on to talk about the fact that there wouldn't be any drawing of water from wells on the site. Second, with respect to noise, same thing. Certain acoustical requirements are in the ordinance, as well as restrictions with respect to electrical service, there would have to be a substation ever built on that site. And there would have to be certain requirements that are set forth in the ordinance and restrictions. Same with noise and acoustical vibrations, that the vibration sound would not be heard by anyone within a residential development near the site. Same with lighting. Lighting would be restricted, as well as screening and buffering. Now, I think it's important to understand, I'm just trying to explain. No, it's okay.
Excuse me, we listen to everybody, we're just trying to explain
Yeah,
back.
just trying to explain.
Please listen.
Look, right. Well, look, just keep
A
in
lot of
mind
people
too.
came to listen, please just listen.
There's a lot of options for the township committee, as everyone stated, okay? Because there is no application that's been provided. So the governing body has an option to make certain decisions.
Make a motion.
Now, at the same time, a lot of people have said, well, what about a prohibition ordinance? Keep in mind that, and I can understand the merits of that. And I've seen towns, and I've been involved in towns that have had the prohibition ordinance. I've seen this. But a prohibition ordinance also means that some applicant could make an application before the land use board for a use variance. Even though you prohibit something, you could still make an application. And it could be denied, but if it were granted, or if a court were to in any way overturn a decision of the board, there's no standards. There's none of the standards I just discussed. Now, I'm not telling you that that's not a viable option, but I want to tell you it also comes with its pros and cons. Because the standards I just discussed, it's just all these ordinances that have been discussed about prohibition, the straight prohibition. And if someone makes an application, there's no standards. It's up to the planning board to make a determination. Also, there were some really good comments made by, I think you had said it, Mayor Casey Andrews. I know that the governing body wanted to move forward with a land use ordinance at this point in time because timing is very important before an application, if it ever is filed. And there is no approval, there is no agreement that it's been approved, but nonetheless, it's important to have the ordinance on the land use side. The discussion about fire prevention, stormwater, what happens if something goes wrong, first responders, all of that is something that the governing body can still take a look at, and take a look at it in a sense, even if there were an application, even if someone already has a site built. I think that's important to know, and that can apply across the board. I don't have all the answers to that, but those are important questions.
That should have come first.
Again, with the environmental impact statement, environmental impact statements are a requirement before any applicant for an industrial type use goes forward before the land use board. Same with the aquifer. Someone had talked about the aquifer ordinance. I was involved with that ordinance. It's an extensive ordinance that only a few towns have. And in this particular case, even if, under the circumstances, whether it's water is brought in off-site, they would still have to comply with this, and a hydrogeologist would have to come in and render an opinion and assure residents that there would be no impact. I think there's a lot of important statistics and information that was provided with respect to the water use. I think it's something the governing body, Mayor, I'm sure will take into consideration. I also think that as far as other data centers, we've tried to look at other centers because all of these concerns and a lot of the research is very important. And I would say that there's one in Edison, there's one in Mahwah. We're trying to get information. I've been asked to gather more information because those impacts are important. They're on the larger size. And certainly, I would just say, Mayor, if there are other data centers, I'd really like to know, because the more we can learn about them, the better it is. from that perspective.
Ban them!
So anyway, with that being said, the ones that we have seen and come across, a lot of these concerns, we've seen that they have, to some extent, they've been addressed. But I don't go in here, but it's okay. The other thing I just wanted to mention was, it's nice.
What about the benefit?
Yeah, well, I think also, there was a lot of questions like, what's in it for the township? I think that the information that's been provided by the public, I think it certainly is something that this governing body, and that's why they want to have further discussion, should weigh. And I think that's what they said. No, I'm talking about the
discussion.
the concerns that were raised about the water, about electric.
You could vote now.
I would say, with respect to electric.
Vote now.
Yeah.
Stop dancing and vote.
Ban it!
Rescind the ordinances.
Mayor, I'll just say that
Show us you're for us.
it's, the only other thing I would say, Mayor, is, look, as far as the information that was provided tonight, I'm sure the governing body will take that into consideration. But I would also say, from a standpoint of just where this governing body was coming from with this is, this has been an ongoing effort to redevelop that corridor. And maybe this isn't the right fit. That's what everybody's saying. But
Ban it!
keep in mind, I think that's what the public is saying. And I think that's with the backdrop that everybody needs to keep in mind. I want to say, this is a well-intended effort. It may not be what you want,
That's
but
a lie.
remember, when this was going to be a junkyard and the BHT application, I can remember at that point in time, the mayor getting involved to try to see what different type of use could come to that property.
Something worse.
And so what happened was, they went forward, they withdrew their application, they came forward with a warehouse that was approved, and it's a 150-bay warehouse, but to the credit of what the public's saying tonight, that's more acceptable than a data center. But I want to go back and just say, I want to say,
30% smaller.
no, but that was approved. But a number of residents said that tonight. But I want to just say, that's already been approved. But keep in mind, from a standpoint of the intent of the governing body, I can only say it's been a quest to just try to find the appropriate redevelopment for various properties. And so I think during those times, there was a number of public hearings that occurred. And this didn't happen. So this is more information for the governing
Nobody
body to
knew.
consider.
You
Because
hate
at the
it.
same time, all these other uses were approved. So,
Wasn't
Mayor,
in the
I don't-
town newsletter.
I don't think I have anything further, except I would just say that
No,
a
like
lot
what
of the
Neely
comments,
said, put it in a newsletter.
they were I think they're very helpful, and they're important to hear those comments and questions. But at the same time, I can only say the personal type of innuendos, that there's no deals, nobody benefits, but the township was intended to be benefited from. And it's, I think somebody said, well, Mayor, you made a comment, would you even be here in 2030? And that was a year, I'm just gonna say, you had a lot of various personal illness challenges. And that's what you meant that night when you said that, because you came in the day you had a surgery and you made comments like that, like, I don't know if I'll be here. So it wasn't in terms of you being funny, because I was at that. So anyway, Mayor, I don't have anything for right now unless members of the governing body have questions.
Pass a ban!
No, you don't want, Krista, anything?
More like stinky.
We need to hear.
That woman took a cheap shot at him, and he's responding to it.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for being here, and we are all listening to your comments, and I hear you. I live in town. I understand everyone's comments, and that is why we're here, to listen to you. So thank you for being here tonight. I also want to thank everyone that came to the land use board the other night, because it's important to see that process. And I just want to reassure everyone that anyone in any application that comes in this redevelopment zone must, 100%, it's in the redevelopment plan, they must go before the land use board for full approval. So any application for any of these lots that's in this redevelopment zone must have a public hearing where anyone can go and question the developer, question their engineers at a public hearing. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Remove the ordinance. Come on, Ben. Do it, Paul.
Sue, anything? Anything?
Make a
Sue?
motion.
Make a motion, Ben.
I've lived in Andover Township for most of my life. I was the first class to go through what was Andover. Sorry. I've lived in Andover Township for most of my life. I was the first class to go through what was Andover Regional Schools when it was first built. I would like to retire here and not get taxed out of existence. When my participation in voting for those ordinances was trying to weigh a tax benefit to the township that would help alleviate taxes, not alleviate, but help reduce the rise that we're going to be seeing in taxes. I understand. I've got pads. Everybody that got up, I wrote down your concerns. I've listened, and I'm I'd like, no. Thank you.
Please let her speak. Please let her
No, I'm
speak.
done, thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for coming, and I appreciate you saying whatever you want to, excuse me, what you had to say about the no data. I'm only one. I understand all your concerns, the water, your quality of life. I get all that.
Put up the motion. Let's see who the real people are.
It's up to all of us to decide whether, or a majority, if we do or we don't. But I will say this, one thing we need ratables. It's just, you have to think about what ratables, excuse me, let me speak, please. What rateable is, good for our town. I mean, I actually spent it, I appreciate if you let me speak. I was very supportive of Pace Glass. It never happened, and I did exactly what we're talking about. I did go to Jersey City a couple times. It never happened. The one man passed away of a massive heart attack. The land sits there, the building sits there. As far as your concern, I mean, believe me, I hear you. I mean, honestly, I got to tell you, no, I would say, as I voted no. I ban it.
Yeah, Ben. Yeah, Ben, make a motion. Pass a ban.
It's up to the committee to decide what's best for our town, and of course I know you guys, you vote. I get that. I vote how I feel what best serves our town, whether you vote for me or not. I am here to serve you, and I do work for you. However, some things I hear, no, I don't get a pension from this town, and I'll never get a pension, and I'm not here for a pension. I'm here for you. I do whatever I can to save the town money, as you heard about the LED lighting. I am Mr. LED. I'll do whatever I can to help this town save money. Taxes are high. With that being said, yes, no, I will not vote for the data. I think we could find something else more suitable.
Yeah, Ben.
Thank you. God bless all of you, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
I think it's important to note too that it's a different landscape today than it was even 3 months ago for the township. And that is, fortunately, and I think this is really a positive, the affordable housing fourth round that came through and put a lot of housing development requirements on municipalities. The township was able to get through that and get through it without adding any new residential development projects. And that includes this property. And I'm just going to say it because it's closed out. That if there's one thing that is really important with respect to this property at 88 acres, if it were ever developed for residential use through the affordable housing project process, you'd have about 1,500 units. I could give you a lot of comparables to that in the affordable housing. So that's a positive. That's behind this governing body. And while that was always a threat that was out there for that type of use, I think it's important that the next 10 years now, the township's compliant. So that threat for that property has been eliminated. So just important to know.
So, you know, it's like Sue, like Rod. Rod's been here all his life. I moved here 65 years ago. I've lived here absolutely most of my life. I've watched it become from farmland to what we have now. I remember Ellie Busey, you know, you used to own this. Town Hall is on Washer's old farm, used to be run by the Sipleys. Dorset Farms used to be Meyerly Farm, which I used to hunt and fish. Drake Manor was Drake's farm. These were all farms. I remember it way back. There's nobody that has more respect for this town and for the what goes on in this town than I do. There's nobody that works harder than I do in this committee. Nothing is done here to try to hurt anybody. Everything is done here. We look for ratables. We look for things that can lower your taxes. You go to a picnic, you go to a bar, you go to Sheridan, sit there. What's the first thing that somebody comes up and says? What are you going to do about our taxes? That's what we strive for. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at every little thing that we can do to save money so all of us can stay here and still afford to live here. And that's what we're all looking at. Nothing else. Nothing is done, you know, nothing is done in malice or to line pockets. I mean, to sit up here and do what we do, to come to meetings, to go to take off of work, to try to serve the town, trust me, this is not a money-making thing. We lose money. We lose days at work. And you know, nobody's looking, it's not a pity party. Nobody's looking at it, but you know what? Some of the way some of you have acted, I'm almost embarrassed to say that I represent you.
We're embarrassed that you represent us too, Tom.
I mean, you said it first, right?
Imagine saying
You said it first.
Imagine saying literally crazy.
Post round, post round.
What?
You said some.
I said some. I said some. And you know what? You're proving my point. Thank
What
you.
does this blood think here?
So Mayor, could we have a motion to go into executive session so the governing body could have a discussion?
Entertain a motion to go into executive?
Coming back, there's no, even if I got any direction, you don't need necessarily a vote, whatever, you know,
Yeah.
at that point in time. So there's nothing else listed on the agenda, so there wouldn't be any action when the governing body returns. Certainly, the
It'll be
public
just to
can come
adjourn.
back in to adjourn.
That's it,
So-
that's it.
You have to tell us when the information that you guys talk about in executive session, you have to tell us when that's gonna
Absolutely.
be made public.
Yeah, we'll read the resolution to go into executive session. It is under attorney-client, and it is to discuss issues that were raised this evening with respect to the redevelopment ordinance, and this matter would be released to the public once it becomes under the law available, which would mean when this matter has been concluded or direction is given by the governing body otherwise. So again, there will not be any action in executive session, but there will be discussion, and I will, at that point in time, be able to get feedback from the governing body about this issue and the legal issues. So-
Thank you.
We need a date and
I have a
time.
motion
When is it gonna
and I have
be
a second.
public?
Do a roll call, please?
Mr. Bensley, Ms. Gilchrist, Ms. Howell, Mr. Mosner, Mayor Walsh.
Yes.